Welcome to Fun with Wikipedia, where I take Wikipedia articles related to things I teach in class and try to spice them up to make them a little more digestible. Essentially what I like to tell my students is these videos are good for I'll do the work while you just sit back and relax and do the learning part. And also a quick tidbit about learning. I found a fun fact I wanted to share with everybody. The font you choose can influence how much information you retain. So easy fonts like Arial, that's what I'm using right here, easy fonts are not good for memory retention because maybe they're just so easy to read you just blow through it. But if you make it a little challenging, right, there's a balance. If you make it a little challenging like Comic Sans does, research shows that you are able to retain a little bit more. So that's why I'll always do Arial on the left here and Comic Sans on the right, because the things on the right are the kind of takeaways I want you to have. So today's article is Internet Standards. In computer network engineering, an Internet standard is a normative specification of a technology or methodology applicable to the Internet. Internet standards are created and published by the IETF. Engineering contributions to the IETF start as an Internet draft. They may be promoted to a request for comments, RFC, and may eventually become an Internet standard. So an Internet standard is characterized by technical maturity and usefulness. The IETF also defines a proposed standard as a less mature but stable and well-reviewed specification. They used to have something called a draft standard, but they got rid of it. And the contributor to this Wikipedia article said that in RFC 2026, in general, an Internet standard is a specification that is stable and well understood, is technically competent, has multiple independent and interoperable implementations, with substantial operational experience, enjoys significant public support, and is recognizably useful in some or all parts of the Internet. So here are our table of contents. The first thing I'll read is a quick overview, and then we'll talk about the standardization process, what it means to be a proposed standard, what it means to be an Internet standard, and that'll do it. So the overview. An Internet standard is documented by a request for comments, also known as RFCs. Or it could be a set of RFCs. Now, a specification that is to become a standard or part of a standard begins as an Internet draft, though it says earlier in the article that these standard drafts don't exist. Maybe the word Internet draft is referring to a proposed standard. Now when I click the link, an Internet draft is not the same as a standard draft. So a specification that is to become a standard will start at this Internet draft phase, and later, usually after several revisions, accepted and published by the RFC editor as an RFC and labeled a proposed standard. Later, an RFC is elevated as Internet standard with additional sequence numbers when maturity has reached an acceptable level. Collectively, these stages are known as standards track and are defined in RFC 2026 and RFC 6410. So the label historic is applied to deprecated standards track documents or obsolete RFCs that were published before the standards track was established. So they were doing things one way, and now they've changed. They've changed this RFC process. Or at least they've changed some terminology. You either have a Internet standard or you have a proposed standard. Only the IETF, represented by the Internet Engineering Steering Group, can approve standards track RFCs. The definitive list of Internet standards is maintained in the official Internet Protocol Standards. So this is a pretty cool website, really extensive. Anytime I'm sitting here wondering what RFC I should read next, I can go here and just start searching. You'll see the first RFCs they show you are actual Internet standards, but if I zoom out here a little bit, you could really see how extensive this list is. If I keep going down, we're going to get to that part that no longer exists. So here are the old draft standards we talked about that were never actually made into a proposed standard or made into an Internet standard. And then if you just keep going down, you're going to be able to get to that part where here's all the proposed standards. So that's the standards track. You have to do this Internet draft and submit it to these guys, the IESG guys. The definitive list of these standards is that website I just went to. Now it says here the standardization process Becoming a standard is a two-step process within the Internet Standards process. You have your proposed standard and Internet standard. These are called maturity levels. In an RFC, if an RFC is part of a proposal that is on the standards track, then at the first stage, the standard is proposed and subsequently organizations decide whether to implement this proposed standard. So we could be talking like Google or Facebook or Cisco or some company out there, or individuals starting a company. After the criteria in RFC 6410 is met, that is, there are two separate implementations, you have widespread use, no errata, etc., the RFC can advance to become an Internet standard. The Internet standards process is defined in several best current practice documents, notably BCP 9 and RFCs 2026 and 6410. But at the end of the day, it just sounds like you kind of have to go through this algorithm in order to get what your idea of a protocol is out into the community. So you have your gatekeeper of the internet draft and then two maturity levels. And I kind of like this system because it really leaves a lot of room for growth. You know, we should always be changing, always improving. And that's true in our personal lives and in our political systems and technology as well. So more details about this concept of a proposed standard. RFC 2026 originally characterized proposed standards as immature specifications, but this stance was annulled by RFC 7127. So what a proposed standard specification is over here. It's stable, it has resolved known design choices, it has received significant community review, and it appears to enjoy enough community interest to be considered valuable. I wonder how they track this right here, community interest. And I guess by they, I mean the IETF, maybe more specifically the IESG. Well, usually neither implementation nor operational experience is required for the designation of a specification as a proposed standard, which blows my mind because what that sentence says to me is that if you're stuck in this world of theory, that's going to be okay. You can have a theory just become a proposed standard. You don't necessarily have to be implementing the idea in real life. Proposed standards are such quality that implementations can be deployed in the internet. However, as with all technical specifications, these standards may be revised if problems are found or better solutions are identified when experiences with deploying implementations of such technology at scale is gathered. So it's one thing to have a good idea and want to implement that idea. It's another thing to have that idea implemented on a very massive scale. That can change things, so thus your RFC would need to be changed. Now, many proposed standards are actually deployed on the internet and used extensively as stable protocols. Actual practice has been that full progression through the sequence of standard levels is typically quite rare, and most popular IETF protocols remained as a proposed standard. So we have this situation where it's just not worth the paperwork or the time to go through the whole process. Once you have a proposed standard, a lot of people, it looks like they just stop there. Which reminds me of the current state of marriage, at least in America. And I think it connects too because of the terminology they use, proposed standards. A lot of people choose not to get married because everything's working just fine in their relationship. They don't feel like that is a necessary step, a necessary expense, or a necessary level of stress to expose themselves to. So what a cool connection. Not to mention, this is just a hilarious meme. Have you seen it before? It says something like, just don't tie your shoes when you're on vacation in Paris with your girlfriend. Okay, so now a draft standard, we can skip this, but I did have fun reading it, so let me just go through it. In October 2011, RFC 6410 merged this second and third internet standard maturity level. So basically that's saying what I was saying earlier, that we don't have a draft standard and a proposed standard. We got rid of the draft. Is just proposed. And this is really choppy because the person who submitted this article on Wikipedia made some mistakes and I used my account to go ahead and go fix it. Now the IESG can reclassify an old internet standard or an old draft standard as a proposed standard after 2 years. So apparently they just have to wait 2 years. So let's get to the official part in internet standard. This part is really repetitive, so let me jump here. Generally, Internet standards cover interoperability of systems on the Internet through defining protocols, message formats, schemas, and languages. The most fundamental of the Internet standards are the ones defining the Internet protocol. An Internet standard ensures the hardware and software produced by different vendors can work together. Having a standard makes it much easier to develop software and hardware that link different networks because software and hardware can be developed one layer at a time. Normally, the standards used in data communications are called protocols. And the word data communications to me is just networking. We need protocols for networking, and I know we need protocols for encoding as well, and that goes back to the concept of hardware up here. All Internet standards are given a number in the standard series, and the series was summarized in its first document, which is in RFC 5000. That is until 2013. Before then, this practice was in 7100. But that site I took you to earlier is the site you want to go to for a definitive list of Internet standards. Now, documents submitted to the IETF editor and accepted as an RFC are not revised, so if the document has to be changed, it is submitted again and assigned a new RFC number. When an RFC number becomes an Internet standard, it is assigned a standard number, but retains its RFC number. It's a little complicated, and I wonder what happens to the old number. It's questions like that that led me to this fascinating website where I found that IETF has like a journal. So maybe someday if there's enough interest I can read this to you guys and break it down like I do the other technical documents. Well, that's pretty much it. This is just a bunch of unnecessary references. You can read that if you want though. Go ahead and pause. I always look through my citations here, and the last one caught my eye. When I clicked on it to see a list of ordered standards, at least ordered by number, I found that the link didn't work. So let me end this video by giving a little caveat here. Wikipedia, though I love it, can have misinformation. I really suggest you always check your citations. I'm a high school teacher, and at the end of the day, I tell my students that Wikipedia is for adults. I know that might be a little insulting to tell your average teenager, but Wikipedia is for adults who have spent a lot of time reading official documents and reading widely accepted published books, because then you're, I think, a lot more prepared to identify misinformation. But if you must use Wikipedia, please still check those citations.